One of the things that we are very proud of as a nation is because of our history, because of the English language, because of the admiration people have for our country, because of our extraordinary tolerance and freedom and openness, is that we've been able to have influence in the world which is perhaps greater than a small island could expect. And that is, I think, not only important for us, important for the people who live in this country, but important for the world, because we have such an instinctive understanding of many parts of the world. And that is something pretty well unique, I think, amongst advanced industrial nations. I think it's worth talking a little bit about where we stand today. It's a perfectly reasonable question because our influence on the world means a great deal to us. And yesterday we had a debate in Parliament about these matters. And I think the question we're entitled to ask ourselves is, do we have more or less influence in the world than we did 10 years ago? For example, what is the nature of our relationship with the European Union? Now, it is certainly true that some of the fights that were taking place 10 or more years ago have ceased, but they have ceased because essentially the British government continues to give way. In the last few years, there has been a lively debate about where the European Union should be going. And indeed at Laeken, a declaration was made, and the central basis of that declaration was a recognition that people felt no sense of ownership of the European Union, that there was a democratic deficit, that the structures of the European Union had to make people feel that they were part of the whole process. That in turn led to something called the Convention of the Future of Europe, which was chaired by Giscard d'Estaing, and guess what? They produced a constitution. Now, we have a European treaty which we will be discussing, which this government says has nothing to do with a constitution, but in fact most Europeans recognize it to be everything but a constitution in name. In the last few months we haven't had this particular treaty in operation, and it is not as if the functioning of the European Union has collapsed. A very wise thing was said by Willy Brandt one day, the former German Chancellor, that politicians go into politics to resolve a given set of problems, and when those problems are resolved, they fail to move on. I fear that this is the case for the European Union. We are creating structures which have nothing to do anymore with the real challenges facing Europe. Of course, we need to cooperate in matters like the environment. We need to cooperate in matters like policing, sharing intelligence. There are many aspects of mutual recognition of degrees and services that are valuable. But of course, the real challenges are that we are an aging population, we have top-heavy and expensive welfare structures, we are a diminishing part of the global marketplace. And frankly, unless we begin to address these issues, the future prosperity of the European Union will be damaged. We are still frozen in a mindset which was formulated in the 1950s and 1960s, which really has precious little to do with the challenges of the 21st century. And as this architecture of the European Union has been created in the last 10 years, we pleaded with the government to set out their stall, to argue for a particular vision of what the European Union should look like. They absolutely failed to do so, and were always carried along in the slipstream of others. And that is why we're in this unhappy situation today, whereby this government is driving us towards a treaty which in any sense of the word is a constitution, which actually will make people further alienated, not only in Britain, but across Europe, from the structures of the European Union. I wanted also to just talk about the Middle East briefly. Because of the Iraq War, because of other policy decisions and representatives made by this government, we have virtually no influence in that area. It is now something of a powder keg. There are the continuing strains between Israel and Palestine. We have the problems of Iran. Where is Britain in all of this? Where is our traditional influence in that area? It has vanished like the morning mist, and we virtually have no credibility left. And unfortunately, again, we seem to be being carried along in the slipstream of others.